All right, good evening, everyone. We're here this evening to discuss, it's a work session for the Mayor and Council of Berlin, and to discuss our utility fund budgets. And we're going to begin with some housekeeping rules for everybody in attendance from our town administrator.
All right, good evening. The current COVID restriction, on the back table there is hand sanitizer and gloves should you warrant rubber gloves. Out in the hallway there is a restroom with warm water and soap should you wish to wash your hands. And then the restroom facility as well. That's all, Mayor.
Thank you. And the first item on our agenda is a report for our healthcare renewal. Kelsey Jensen and Chris Carroll will be running point on this. Thank you both.
Well, I'll introduce Chris here with One Digital. He's here this evening to give you guys a breakdown of our healthcare renewal for this year. Chris has worked very diligently to get us down. When we first started off this process, it came in at 29%. So it's quite an increase to healthcare, but he's helped to bring it down to a much more manageable figure. And we did explore some other options this year. The ICHRA, the Individual Coverage Health Reimbursement Arrangement, was something we've never really looked into in the past, and it's not what we're recommending tonight, but we just want you to know that we didn't leave any stones unturned. So I'll leave it to Chris now to go ahead and get started.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it. Good evening, everyone. Again, Chris Carroll. Starting with the slide deck we do have a summary of the work that we've done over the past few months collectively together. And for the agenda for this evening, medical insurance renewal options is the driver. That's obviously the most consequential from a cost and benefit standpoint to our employees. Currently, we have the Care First program, which will look at their renewal, as well as the alternate suggestion. We looked at about 12 different alternatives within Care First, as well as looking within the local government insurance trust, which is referred to as LEGIT, and United Healthcare, both on their normal platform as well as on their self-funded platform, which is labeled All Savers. Aetna and Aetna's alternate funding AFA program, and Benefit Indemnity, which is more of a regional carrier. In addition to those market alternatives, we looked at the Individual Coverage Health Reimbursement Arrangement. That was a new legislation that was effective for January 1st, 2020, but realistically wasn't operable until 2021. So this is our first renewal that's up for consideration. Has its advantages, but it also has its limitations as well, and we'll talk through some of those as why it won't be our recommendation this year, but we will continue to look at it on a biannual, twice-a-year basis as those policies are calendar year. We'll also recap the ancillary insurance and the voluntary employee paid coverages, although those are not necessarily directly related to budget. They will be as part of the total employee benefit package, so I want to make sure we're presenting on that as well. Starting with your Care First renewal option, the Care First was released at an increase at 28.57% above current. So that's comparing medical premium to medical premium. That's driven primarily by a loss calculation that they do. Because of our market segment, they don't disclose a lot of they will not disclose any details pertaining to any diagnosis or prognosis, but they basically effectively give you a risk score, both indirectly through the rate, as well as directly through communicating some of the prognosis numbers that they're looking at. Based on that, we also went back to them and discussed some discounts. The first discount was a multi-line discount. We have our dental and vision with them. Those discounts are worth 3.5% off of premium. The second was a business concession discount, which was 5%. And then finally, it was a market pressure premium credit discount of 5%. The most consequential of that as well is the alternate plan design that we are going to recommend this evening, which is a deductible increase, which was a minus 15% delta. When you add those together, the combined premium for the recommended option means the recommended alternative medical program will go down slightly in premium. We'll effectively call that a rate hold, comparing $758,000 currently to $756,000 on renewal. However, the impact of increasing the deductible means that the other major component of our health plan, which is the health reimbursement arrangement, and just for recap for anyone who's not familiar or hasn't looked at that in a while, The health reimbursement arrangement is the deductible funding that the town provides for the employees when they incur claims. That program is budgeted at $179,000 currently, but with that increased deductible, we would be recommending an increase in that budget up to $222,000. So the net result, combining the two major components, premium and health reimbursement together, one going down slightly, one going up considerably, the blended weighted average of those two is a 4.4% increase over current, or a $41,620 impact to budget. When we look at that, one of the things that's obviously important to acknowledge, that's based on a snapshot in time. If we have 2 less employees or 2 more employees, we're actually billed on a month-to-month basis, but this is based on the current enrollment status of singles, families, of the makeup of our current employees, again, using the expression a snapshot in time. Before we go any further into the details of kind of how we got there, this is kind of a recap of our recommended option. Are there any points of concern or discussion related to what we've gone over so far?
Just to clarify, just for everybody watching, this is sticking with our current healthcare provider and not deviating. So just so that everybody's aware.
Good point. Thank you. All right. As we go into the numbers that drive those totals, again, as we indicated before, based on this snapshot of time, this is based on an enrollment of 65 employees, blended over different employee, spouse, children, and family makeups. And that's summarized on page 4 of the slides, which drives us to a combined premium in the top half, projected HRA in the bottom half, and the orange numbers inclusive of the premium credit factors that technically CareFirst gives us front-end loaded. So they give us that 5% credit in the 3rd month, but for illustrative purposes, when we're doing monthly budgets, obviously we would blend that out to show it representatively as a factor of 1/12. But the good part of it is we get that, and we get the HRA lag as front-end loaded for cash flow purposes. Turn it forward to page 5. This is a snapshot of some of the other alternatives we examined, to include the LEGIT program, which is an excellent program through the Local Government Insurance Trust. The downside to the LEGIT program is when you enter it under a 2-year contract, and you also enter it under the assumption that you will pay it maximum in hopes to get the refund at the end of the year. They consistently do perform well and do provide rebates. So that's why you'll see 2 numbers with them. A 20.20% increase to current is what we would have to budget at maximum and actually pay. But in the end, we may get that down to about 5 to 6% after they gave us a rebate. So key distinction and advantage of CareFirst, who front-loaded all their benefits and they're fully insured and guaranteed, other than the HRA utilization, versus LEGIT, which we have to have good claims experience and the fund has to have good claims experience to get it back, but we have to pay the premium up front at a 20% delta versus current. So that was why LEGIT is not being recommended. Everything else in the program is very competitive and compelling, if not for that max factor or loading. United Healthcare, we actually owe them a good deal of consideration. They were very aggressive in working with us to try to get us a platform that we could build a single plan for our employees to function well. We've used them in the past before. Unfortunately, from a number standpoint, they came in at 7.6% above, comparing to CareFirst at 4.4%, comparing the continuity of keeping the same carrier at a lower rate. Again, that goes to the recommendation to stay within CareFirst. Within that, the benefit indemnity, which is the other one that we talked about that you won't see a number in here for, they declined to quote. They did, in fact, do a micro-evaluation of our employees. So again, they don't share any specific member information. They just create a risk score. But one of the things that's unique to that risk score is they can tell us that we had prognosis risk of 1 member of $100,000 and greater, and 8 additional members at $50,000 to $100,000 in risk. So what that helps support us is to know that CareFirst wasn't just being completely out of left field with the number. There were some claims that were driving that. And the measures that we've taken collectively with them will hopefully kind of buy us some time for those claim situations to somewhat resolve. And benefit indemnity's risk score would have also been mirrored with AFA and All Savers as to why they're not in this final recommendation. Individual coverage health reimbursement arrangement, otherwise known as ICHRA, just because the name is kind of long. So we, with the basics with ICHRA, final rules were approved in June of 2019. We actually started studying some proposed guidance as early as March of 19, excuse me. And we followed this very closely. We're actively utilizing them in certain areas, but they do have some complexities and strict rules as to how you can provide benefits for the employees. And because they're kind of an IRS, very heavily regulated strategy, it does create some challenges for our employment group. So when you look at the numbers, a little brief notice on it. What ICHRA is in its simplest form, by far. It's an employer contribution combined with the allowability that the employee can purchase a policy that we would help them with. And when they purchase that policy, whatever premium was in excess of what we contributed, they could deduct on a Section 125 pre-tax basis. So it gives it the same tax deductibility as a group product. It's kind of what we call a hybrid, combining a group HRA, or medical expense reimbursement plan technically, with a group ICHRA paying of premium and Section 125 deductions with an individual policy that the member actually owns themselves. When you tie all three of those together, you create the ICHRA. One of the very compelling things behind an ICHRA, and actually pretty interesting timing as it relates to the Biden second announcement related to agenda items, is it works very well with Medicare. So if that number were to fall to 60 from 65, or you compromise at 62, ICHRA would even become more compelling in the future. So it's something that we are staying very close with and have built some administrative solutions around. So those are all the positive things with ICHRA, including on the next page the numbers. As a number comparative, it's minus 2.41% versus current. So we can create a compelling plan with aggregate total cost that is very effective. There are some significant challenges though. The first, it's a 6-month plan year. So you would be moving from fiscal to calendar year, and we're comparing a 12-month contract to a 6-month contract, which we all know the 12-month is going to be more valuable, and it's also from an HRA budgeting standpoint much more palatable. In addition to that, and this is probably the most compelling difference for our group, is that each individual member has their own rate. We as the employer cannot normalize it. We're not allowed. In small group, we can do that. We can say, yeah, we know your rate's 500 and your rate's 900, reverse. But we'll make your net cost $50 each, so everyone's fair. We can't do that in ICHRA. It's not permissible.
It's based on, just a little background, it is based on age and location and your family members. So, you know, a 62-year-old with a 26-year-old child is not going to be the same as a 30-year-old with a 2-year-old child. So doesn't matter your family size, it's based on the age and the location that you're in, and then each employee, you'll see it on the next slide, we've got a breakdown of how it would affect different employees. So
does it mean, when you say age, is it age range, oldest to youngest, or just?
It's each individual family member and their ages.
We use the expression every belly button. Every belly button has their own factor. You know, and so one of the advantages, if they're 65 or older, we can use Medicare as primary. It's the only group policy that's permitted because of TEFRA regulations. These are individual policies, so that hybrid creates a little bit of advantage. On the flip side, the 64-year-old, 63-year-old are really, really expensive, and especially when we go across the state line and our only options are the Highmark platform of individual products. You'll also see in the individual market the max out-of-pockets and the consumer protections are not there the same way they are in the group. So you'll see different risk profiles from one state to the other in terms of the plans that are available to them. So it has its challenges. We can solve most of them. The ones we can't solve are the ones that are listed. The 6 months and the fact that the rate differential can't be normalized. We get very creative. We take all the employees, we take age of next oldest dependent, we take age of next oldest dependent, age of next oldest dependent, and we can create contribution schedules to get as close to current as possible, but we can't get all the way there. So then it says, well, what's left? You have a list of people that are harmed by the move, and what do you want to do about it? Do you want to make salary compensations or adjustments? And then what happens if it changes in the future? So it gets very, very complicated, but in general, if I were talking about a private enterprise, when I have a -2%, I usually have to reinvest about 7% to get that delta of the negatives to go away. So that everybody that's left in the room in a 100-person group, no one will be harmed. It's going to cost me about 7%. So even in total at -2, it looks good. There's about 7% of the members, 7% that's going to be allocated to members going in the wrong direction.
Now, Chris, while we're on the topic of ICRA, with the 6-month agreement, is there any way to secure a longer-term arrangement with that, or is 6 months?
Yeah, really good question. And the answer is, you can create an ICRA that's 12 months. That's the employer contribution. But they have to purchase a policy in the individual market.
Okay.
That marketplace is governed by calendar year.
Okay. So once we hit the calendar year, could we do a 12-month?
You would be calendar year from that point
So
forward.
we would just need a bridge. And I know that we've talked about the fact that ICRA is a little bit more cumbersome on the employee side and on the HR side here at the town, but we've also not thrown it completely out, because if we do get a large swing in a year, that may be a plan that we choose to move forward with. So it's something important to pay attention to.
Absolutely, it's an absolute safety net for us, and we will look at it midterm. So we stay with it because it's just important to know where those numbers are. Prospectively, to protect, to say, going into July 2022, we will know where we're at, worst case scenario in December. So that's on our normal service model, and that's something that we report to Kelsey as part of that process.
Now,
Chris, go ahead, I'm sorry.
it's okay.
I was just going to say, Chris did say that he sees this as what we're trending towards normalized in an employee group. So this may be something that in 5 years, every organization's doing, but we're not quite there yet. But I think it's something, like he said, that he'll keep following and report back to us, so.
Now, if we ended up, say, we had to get on an ICRA plan for a calendar year, is it possible to re-bid for healthcare on a calendar year basis? I know
Yes.
it presents some budgeting complications, but,
Other than the budgeting complications, the short answer is yes.
okay.
And just so the users at home understand as well, basically what Chris is saying, I mean, we would essentially have 65 individual plans based on what we currently have on the town's health insurance, but kind of umbrellaed by the town. We help them manage it, but it is their plan. And he did say it could get a little complicated if someone goes into their individual account and changes something, when it comes time to pay those bills, we're gonna have to figure out who changed what and what,
We've had some interesting ones so
yes,
far.
it's nothing that I don't think, between Chris and his team and myself, it's not something we couldn't manage, but it does present some challenges, so.
Do you see any municipalities shifting to this?
Not yet.
Okay.
I'm one of the thought leaders, One Digital nationally in this area, so I would know. We've got 2,500 employees, we've got, however many thousands of employers. So I would know if any municipalities were there yet. The biggest challenge we have by far is the aggregate test looks good, but when we get to the micro, how do you tackle that?
Do you want to show that slide?
Yeah, that's a good slide to show. So,
This is kind of the differences. We took the top 3 employees and that would benefit from switching, and the bottom 3, I guess, that would see. You probably can explain it a little bit
no,
better
you're
than I
right on
can.
there. Sometimes I forget which direction we get it into, but what we're comparing is current cost to ICRA cost for that employee. And obviously the names are redacted, but the first section you'll see, you have employees on a monthly basis that'll be going from $51 to as high as $267 a month.
317 on the second employee down. So an increase of $256
Increase of $267, correct,
So we'd have to make that up, like he said, you'd have to do something for that employee to make it, we have employees that would go down $233 per month. So, you've got to balance it out. Once you do that, you're putting that into, it's going to raise that percentage because you're gonna have to make up for it in another way. So it wouldn't be fair to the employees
Correct.
to,
Yeah, the rules don't allow us to just normalize it. That's what we would do. If this was a 10-person group and small group, oddly enough, the Department of Labor allows us to solve for employee costs. In ICRA, because it was developed by an IRS tax regulation, the structure doesn't allow it. We get extremely creative with splitting out the family to get it as close to as few people going in the wrong direction as possible. You know, basically, in a nutshell, you could actually pay more for the fourth dependent than the third dependent. There's just very creative ways to get it close, but it's still going to eat up 5 to 7% because we can't take the money from the winners to provide it to the people that aren't benefiting. So when you go through that math, it's going to eat up some of the increase, which now if we're at 4.4% with Care First, even if we got really, really creative and got it to a 1% better deal, there's no way I would recommend a 6-month contract with all these complexities versus a 12-month contract without them. We're just not there yet, but it is a great safety net that we have that we never had before.
Chris, I have a question about the add-on insurances that employees buy, the vision, the dental, whatnot.
Yes, sir.
What's the increase of those costs as well?
We're going to get to this shortly, but the dental went down by a percentage point, the vision went down by a percentage point. We can go there now,
Yeah.
next slide. Good segue.
yes.
The dental went down by 1 percentage point, which was just a business concession by Care First. Same thing with vision. Short and long-term disabilities rates didn't change. Voluntary life insurance didn't change, although if an employee hit a new age tier, they would be impacted by the delta from going 49 to 50. From the employer budget side, we did have one item that had an increase, and that was the annual increase of $1,249 from Principal for the employer provided life insurance. And that's just, you know, Principal's been a good carrier for all the other lines with the rate holds on the short term and the long term and the voluntary life. So we still were recommending that we accepted that from Principal, but that was the only area that was going in the wrong direction for the other carriers.
There's one thing I want to make sure everyone understands, maybe we have some new folks in here. It's taken about 7 years to get where we're at on something, and what I'm alluding to, back in 2010, dental and vision insurances primarily, even though they're ancillary, the town was subsidizing those premiums by about 40% back in 2010. We are now in 2021 where those two lines are fully paid for by the employer.
And it's nice to be able to stick with our current carrier, so that employees don't have to worry about, you know, is their doctor going to still be in network? You know, it makes everything a little simpler. So.
Yeah, we like minuses, so that's, you
Yeah.
know, the dental and visions, you know, we'll take anything going in that direction. Usually they try to take our insurance license away if we have anything that goes negative, but I was able to negotiate dispensation. The next page gives you a quick snapshot of medical deduction history. We also are recommending, even in light of the 4.4% increase, that the payroll deduction for the medical remain fixed. We did that in reference to the fact that last year we had a fairly significant percentage increase in employee cost per pay, and you might have some
Yeah, I
insight
can
into that.
touch on those. I did formulate those percentages, and for the employee only, it went up 31%. For employee and spouse, it went up 12%. For the employee and child or children, it went up 10%. And for families, it went up 11%. So last year, the employees did see an increase to this, and as I mentioned in a past work session, the net pay did go down, so we wanted to just go ahead and recommend that we're not going to change that this year. We'd like to see it remain the same. So.
Yeah, so the final recommendations on page 13 are to renew with all current carriers, Care First and Principal, built on the same platforms, the same benefit strategies. We are recommending the increased deductible with the increased HRA at a budget percentage of 4.4% above current, and keeping the employee benefit deductions fixed for the current year. And that's our
Anyone have any questions?
recommendation.
Has anything changed, Chris? I didn't ask you this. Anything changed with the max out of pocket?
Yes, it follows the deductible up, it does.
Okay, go back to that slide.
I don't think we have that slide in this.
Oh, okay. I don't know. If
And now we don't have one.
No, okay,
No.
sorry.
It does follow it does follow an increase.
Can you send those numbers over?
Yes, sir.
Any questions for Chris or Chelsea?
I just want to thank Chris for all his hard work. He works really hard every year to keep us on track, so we appreciate it. I know that I can always count on him and Sam, and I just want to make sure you guys are aware of that. They're very
Well,
good.
that holds true for you and Jeff also, and everybody else that's working with it.
The thing you all, again, the council needs to understand on something here real quick. I call this a hidden advantage, and it's a needed advantage. The reality is, once we get through open enrollment, and Kelsey does everything she needs to do on our end with the payroll side, everything from what the employee elects going to the carrier side, whether it be health, dental, vision, short-term, any of those things, all that enrollment, if you will, is done by One Digital.
Yes.
Super help. When you walk in, if you're on our health plan and you got some off-the-wall scenario, something that's happened, and it happens all the time, Kelsey will try. If Kelsey gets stumped, tell her to call Sam or Chris. So, again, new council, Mayor Tyndall's heard this more than once. I think Kelsey was actually a non-believer until it happened. You'll get an employee that will walk in to town hall at 8 o'clock in the morning with a Walmart shopping bag
Correct bag of
full of
receipts.
receipts and say, I need help. So you can say that we shouldn't do that for the employee, but you'll be the first one in line with that bag of trash. trust me. Okay? So it's something that Sam and Chris are great help with as well.
But we appreciate the opportunity to work for you and hopefully for many more years. Thank you all for your time.
And Chris, just one thing I forgot to mention during your presentation, we've talked about it privately, but the comprehensive package that the town of Berlin offers to our employees is in the top tier when we look nationally.
It's outstanding. It
So
Yeah.
I think that's something that should be stated.
really is.
So I just have just a real quick question, kind of a process question. Since the three of us are new, where staff is just, this decision is on the mayor and the council, but is the staff aware of the options that are out there? Or is this just
This
you work
is-
together and
This is
represent to
that
us?
presentation.
This is employer sponsored,
Okay.
okay? So the options that they have, you saw,
So we,
that the ancillary benefits are the options.
okay, thank you.
And the other option is that every employee has the option of either whether they can choose to go with the employer plan or not.
Correct.
Whether it's not a forced thing, but we do only cover one program a year.
Yeah, we have 75 employees, and like you mentioned, we have 65 currently enrolled. So we do have 10 employees that do not participate in the town's health insurance. But it is a very rich plan, and we like to keep it that way.
And we did add, remind me, or correct me if I'm wrong, I know 10, 11 years ago, with health insurance, we actually offered two plans,
Yeah.
an employee of choice, basically a high tier and a low tier plan.
And we did that with dental this past year.
Yeah.
We did offer two options, so.
We get some discounts from the carriers, the more we can streamline the medical offering. There's, not that some of that can't be negotiated, but generally speaking, if you get too different in the plan of benefits, there's an underwriting load of anywhere between 3/4 and 2% of the premium. And when your plan is as good as yours is, there's not really a lot of room to make, you have to make a worse plan. So when you make a worse plan, what are you going to do? Floor the rate to 0? It really create adverse selection where we would find out that less than 5% of the population would be in that plan anyway. So it would be against our recommendation, but we do explore and discuss those options. We have a planning meeting that we have back in March, and we talk about different ideas and opportunities, things to consider. But I'm happy with where we ended up, and I hope we.
I'm very happy with where we ended up.
And I remind,
28%,
and I remind the mayor and council again, I mean, the reality on something is it's insurance. Okay, it's a risk. And I remind you all again that, what, 38%, 40% of our employee group are senior citizens? So we are an aging workforce. So tell me I'm wrong, Chris, the older we get, it's the higher the gamble, the higher the risk.
If they
I
drop,
said we get.
if they drop Medicare down to 60, then we'll be talking nothing but Ecker next time.
Any other questions for Chris? All right,
Thank you
well,
very
thank you very much,
I'll
appreciate it.
I will, thank you. Take care, guys.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
See ya.
All right, so we'll move on to the second item of our agenda and moving into our utility funds in particular. I have a brief statement and then we'll get into an overview by the town administrator and then right into our funds. So this evening, we're here to discuss the utility fund budget with council and staff. Since this is a work session, there will be no comments or questions taken from the public. If you have any question about a particular line item or would like more information regarding the budget process, you may reach out to your elected representative or contact Town Hall during normal business hours and ask to speak with the mayor, finance director, or town administrator. The budget that we are discussing this evening encompasses the following utilities: the electric fund, water fund, sewer fund, and stormwater fund. The budgets that you have in front of you this evening are the same requests that I received from each department head. The only exceptions are the reduction in the cell phone allowances to match the general fund, and salaries remain unchanged from FY21. Within the electric fund, you will see an increased investment in capital equipment since we are phasing out the $184,498 expenditure for real estate taxes over FY22 and FY23. You will also see that there isn't enough to truly invest in the capital needs of our electric fund, and that a more sustainable long-term plan will need to be evaluated. Since the rates of our electric utility are governed by the Maryland Public Service Commission, we will need to conduct an updated rate study since the last study was completed in 2013. Unfortunately, there's not any funding for this in FY22 due to the cost, but we'll be exploring the best ways to move forward with a new rate study in FY23. With respect to the water and sewer fund, two of our major issues at this time continue to be accurately capturing and billing for the use of service, along with the tremendous amount of debt on the books within the sewer fund. Gene Holloway is working on completing a rate study for the water fund, and we are working internally to replace over 200 meters that were not reading properly. Both of these funds have several capital needs that are confined due to a lack of revenues. The stormwater fund also suffers from a lack of revenue to invest into capital projects. During FY22, there will be an increased focus on maintenance and smaller projects as we attempt to build up our revenues and attack more grant opportunities. And at this time, I'll turn it over to our town administrator, Jeff Fleetwood.
All right, good evening again, Mayor and Council. Some of the things that I will state are redundant to what Mayor Pender has stated. But for everyone's edification, this is a preliminary budget, if you will, for the utility fund, or as we call it as well, the enterprise funds. The enterprise funds consist of water, sewer, stormwater, and as you can see, Mr. Lawrence, the electric utility, so let's not forget them. The easiest way that I say that you approach the enterprise funds, they are like a business, totally different from the general fund. This is revenue driven, expense driven, based off what they do and what they produce and what they provide. Electric is standalone, as the mayor mentioned, they're heavily regulated by the Maryland Public Service Commission. Water resources is covered by revenues and by the services that they provide. For FY22, the electric budget is at $5.3 million. It's down 2.5% from current year. The purchase power cost is at $2.5 million. Main capital projects for the electric utility are the roof on the power plant. Miscellaneous, I'm not going to get into all the technical terms, but miscellaneous switch gears, reclosures, pole replacement. We do have money in the electric utility for replacing the accent lighting on Main Street. And also, Tim has some trans closures. Again, I'm not going to go into all the detail, but Tim will. Water fund for FY22 is coming in at $938,000. It's pretty much flat compared to current year. Main capital projects are Franklin Avenue, number 2 well house, hydrants, valves, and I do want to make it known, this is year 3, I believe. We've made the request for the Powelton Avenue well house. You need to take a ride to Powelton Avenue. As Jamie said, if we don't get this done soon, he's going to buy tents at Walmart. Okay? That's not a joke. Okay? I'm being dead serious. When was that built, Jamie?
1940 something, 45, 44.
It's a cinder block building that you need to take a look at it. It's been on its last leg. The sewer fund for FY22, $2.5 million, up 3%. Main capital is the Broad Street lift station. That's about $300,000. The 346 East lift station, you can call it an ATV, but it's an all-terrain utility vehicle for out at the spray site. We got 2 of those when we did the spray sites, and they were all grant funded. One of them has reached its last life, so it needs to be replaced. And then at the one spray site, the HVAC system needs to be replaced. And that's how old?
96.
Okay. Excuse me. Stormwater FY22 budget's about $183,000. So that's I call it the short cap of what you're going to have in front of you tonight. The department heads will go into a little bit more detail, answer any and all questions that you may have. And I do want to just go back in time real quick. Back to the electric utility before we start with them. As you're well aware, the mayor's well aware, but there was a lot of involvement, if you will, from the consortium of municipal electric utilities where we have banded together in regards to Senate Bill 516, trying to get relief. There is relief coming, but it won't be until next year. So to just give you an idea, projected if everything stayed as was before we went to work with the gentleman, what was his name again? Littner?
Yes.
Yeah, the gentleman that went to work for us as a lobbyist.
Brett
Leininger, thank you, Mayor. But without that effort, in 2022, the cost that we're looking at would have been roughly $350,000. With the relief that we're getting, it's now going to drop down to 105.
Now, that's not official yet.
Not official.
It's passed the House and the Senate. It's still waiting for a signature from the governor.
That's all we're waiting on, so it looks promising.
And it wouldn't go into effect until the 1st of October.
Correct.
So that's why things are unchanged in the FY22.
Correct.
Does
But
does he have the
promising.
Does he have the 60 days? Just if he doesn't sign it, it becomes law.
That I don't know. I can't speak to that.
Okay? So that's all I have.
I'm going to go over the electric fund revenues. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Sure.
First thing I'd like to say is to all the new council, I'd like to say welcome to the town of Berlin and part of the government side of Berlin, and appreciate it. And to the mayor, thank you.
Thank you.
Jeff wanted me to give you a little history on the electric department for the newer members. The electric department started around 1912, and we've been around that long, so it's been a long time. We have a total of 10 employees within the electric department. One of them works at the power plant. At one time, there used to be 5 employees in that department at the power plant, back when we ran basically 24/7. Well, now we only peak shade during the summer months and a little bit in the winter. So we have 1 employee that works at the plant instead of 5. But during peak shaving time, we have a second employee there just for safety reasons. If something was to happen while one of the motors is running, that type of thing. Within the distribution side, we have 8 employees. We have 2 chief linemen. We have 1 first-class lineman, 1 second-class lineman. Then we have what's called an apprentice, and we have a meter technician. And then we have a line superintendent. And then there's myself in the administrative side, so there's a total of 10 of us.
And I'd like to add that for the new council, prior, Walker and Caleb have been here how long?
Walker's been here about 7, 8 months, I
And
guess.
then Caleb's about a year and a half?
About almost 2 years.
All right, so about 3 years ago, we were operating with one linesman apprentice. And we've never yet gotten to where we've gotten with the 2 that we currently have. So my point was, I know that we have 2 of our senior linesmen that are going to retire. When? Last year I would have said this year I'm going to say next year. Any day. They could retire quite some time ago. The investment that we made with these linesman apprentices, we now have 2 versus 1. And we are at a stage now with that process, it's a 4-year process. It's further than we've been. The other folks that we've had in the role either have not done well in school, lost drive and motivation to get to that level of being a first-class lineman. So we do have the investment made on the personnel side. The good news is, should someone retire, I think the time is going to be just about right, where our linesman apprentices will be able to step right in and fill those spots. So we'll go in there uninterrupted with institutional knowledge and also qualified help.
Correct.
So does that mean that then we should, in the future, look for someone to take the apprentice, to backfill that? Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
But we made that decision a while ago that we brought 2 on, factoring in that some may not advance. So we might not always have 2
That's right.
in play, but that was a strategic decision done because we knew we had.
The two, again, we've got 2 senior linesmen. Again, as I said, last year, I would have said this year I'm going to say next year. That was the idea for the 2 apprentices. So, again, I think that once we get to that stage and the 2 apprentices become first-class linesmen, we've got a gap for a while before somebody takes off and runs because of retirement, as I call it. We could probably drop that back easily to 1 apprentice.
Right.
What is the time requirement for schooling to become a senior linesman?
4 years.
4 years.
That's 4 years of schooling, 8,000 hours of on-the-job training, and normally it's another year after that. So you're looking at about 5 years.
And where do you take these classes?
In Virginia, Orange County. It's through a group called ODEC, Old Dominion Electric Co-op. It's a certified lineman's course that is put on by the Northern Lineman Community Lineman College, basically, and it's a certified course, and there's every kind of co-op, investor-owned municipality from all over the East Coast, they go to this school.
And the town pays for that education?
That is correct, yes.
And if they leave,
It's an
they're required
investment.
to pay us back.
And the nice part is that, like, with the testing and stuff, Tim's able to proctor a lot of that.
Yes, I'm actually the testing administrator for the online course that they have to test here. And then as far as the field, they have to do certain tasks in the field as they go through each step. There's 8 steps. So they'll go to school for a week, and then they come back and they have to take these tests online. But they also have to complete a certain amount of tasks in the field. That can be anywhere from setting a pole, a transformer, whatever it needs to be done. That it has to be signed off by our chief lineman that he trained them how to do this. So once they get through to that part, then they can proceed to the next step. So they don't advance until they complete all the tasks, like in say step 2, they don't go to step 3 until that's completed. If they were to fail one of the written tests that you do online, they have to wait 30 days to retake that test. So if they fall behind 30 days, that could mess up the schedule for them to go to the next step, which that has happened once before.
And
So it would delay their progress, basically.
what's been fascinating in the tenure that I've been with the town, you know, you interview, you source for candidates, and you get, you know, a busload coming here motivated, wanting to be a linesman, and you make sure they understand that, you know, you're dealing with those things out there with that'll kill you. You understand, yeah. What we've experienced since I've been here anyway, when the linesman apprentices that he's had under his tutelage get to the point where they go from working on inert lines, going to live, that's when the whole demeanor changes. And I can respect, it's something that you have to really want to do. Not taking away from any other employee with a risk factor, but I'm going to flat out say it. What these guys are doing, and it's open to females as well, the guys, you know, all male linesmen. You figure when they're out there, you just watch in a storm, because that's when the power goes out, right? And wind's blowing and it's raining, or whatever the case may be, they're wrapped up with, you know, rubber gloves, and my hat's off to them, because that's some real dangerous stuff.
So one last question, when you're getting ready to hire an apprentice, what is the job requirement? What do they need?
To hire an apprentice, we look for a little bit of experience. Like, to start out as an apprentice, we would like to see some kind of experience, maybe as a laborer with an electric residential company, for example. Basically have some kind of basic knowledge when it comes to electricity.
The two that we have now, the one gentleman came to us from Verizon, okay? And the other gentleman, we had an influx when we hired him of folks locally, believe it or not, that had put themselves through one phase of the linesman school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. In fact, one of them, he was actually, there's 8 steps, he was grandfathered through the first step because he had actually put himself through an apprenticeship school himself, which was around $14,000 to do that. And we looked at that, and that was a deciding factor. And like Jeff was saying, these employees, we've been through a lot of apprentices that get partway into the program and then they decide, you know, they don't like this line of work, or they're scared of it, the voltage, and they kind of step away. But the two we have right now are really, they have progressed really well. In fact, one of them's made it to step 5, which he's on, you know, he's got 40 good.
They both seem very driven,
They are.
so that's good.
Mhm.
All right, so, revenue,
Revenues.
thank you.
This was stated a couple of minutes ago. The total revenues for electric fund is $5.3 million. That's projected, estimated. Projection's been done with the help of our engineering services, Booth and Associates. Just going to go through the main categories. All of them basically sale of electric. You have residential services, commercial services, general service, streetlights, large general service. Like I mentioned, all of those amounts are projected amounts based on how many accounts we have for a specific category, and all of them are driven by the purchase power cost. So basically, if the purchase power cost goes down, the revenue is going down. They're totally independent on each other. You see a service and material for $85,000 estimated. Those revenues come in as reimbursement for any work that the developer do. So basically, we would bill back the developers for the material and services provided by the electric department. We have a little bit of interest on delinquent for outstanding accounts, and a little bit of reconnect fees. That's pretty much it for the electric fund revenues. We're going to go department by department. Tim gonna drive through his budget. The only thing I want to mention, on page 3, you will see a difference in the account called contingency. That's basically a difference between the revenue and projected expenses for fiscal '22. That's an excess, a small difference of $26,000. Tim gonna start with electric administration. We're just gonna cover the main parts, obviously the capital outlay. I'm not planning to go by each line item, but if you have any questions or if you see something that you'd like to discuss in details, please stop us. Tim, refer to the page when you goes.
And just before you begin, Tim, anybody watching at home, page 1 with the electric revenues, if you're looking at the different customer classes and you have any questions about that, we do have our electric tariff online, and you can take a look at the different customer classes so that you can understand that a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We're on page 2. I'd like to go down to professional services. You'll see $110,000 in there. What that is for is the 2 basic contractors that we use in the electric utility field. One is electric engineering, and then also is financial advice. We use a company called Booth Associates out of Raleigh, North Carolina. They handle a lot of the professional services when it comes to the Public Service Commission, permitting for the power plant, all kinds of regulations they handle for us and things like that. Then also we have what's called legal services. That's basically a utility attorney that is involved with us when we have interaction with the Public Service Commission. And then if you go down from there, we have some smaller items, DOT physicals, that type of thing, and this utility. If you look down there, you'll see a Ford F-150 extended cab replacement, 2010. That's my pickup truck that I've been trying to replace for the past 3 years. The truck has some issues, but I've been limping it through basically for the past 3 years. And money-wise, I had to remove it again this year. So we'll go try next year. If you go down through there, if you look at which would be travel, for example, meter school, lineman training. That's the 2 apprentices that we have in line school. One is a second-class lineman now, the other one is a apprentice, and that's Caleb and Walker. Walker's in step 3 and Caleb's in step 5. And then if you go to page 3, at the top of the page, that's cell phones. It's being reduced from $50 a month down to, I think it's $36 a month, which comes out to $434 annually, which that would be for me. And then if you go down to 5620, ATSS dues, what that is American Traffic Safety Association. Basically, I'm certified to teach flagging course to all the employees in the town. You have to pay an annual fee for that.
And that's something that you see in our general fund, like under Public Works, and then when we bring on like some part-time staff,
That's correct.
it's a big value add to have that training capability in-house.
Yes, with COVID, since COVID came along, they now allow you to do it online instead of in person. So they may continue to do that once COVID is over with, or they may go back to where you have to do it in person. Okay. And then if you go down to 5621, if you go down, you'll see emissions, lineman training, metering school, for example, relay school. Lineman training is the 2 employees I was talking about, Caleb and Walker. And then we have a 3rd employee, David, which he is our meter technician. He is also in a meter technician school. It's the same program as the lineman school, but it has to do with metering. It's very technical. That's a 3-year program, and he's about halfway through it right now. And then also there's a relay school that Dave is going to be attending to help understand relaying for the substation and the power plant both, because we have to hire contractors to do that type of work now. And by training in-house, hopefully I'm hoping to get to the point where our employees in-house can do that work instead of paying for contractors to do it. So he'll be going to school for that also. And then if you come on down through there and you look at, I'm going to talk about 5700, which is office supplies. You'll see in there a Dell laptop. That's basically a laptop computer to replace my desktop. My desktop is, the warranty is expired on it. It's been recommended by Cards Computers to replace that computer. And I think you want to go to laptops to make it more,
Yeah, so
to be
people
able to
can,
take home and that type of thing and work outside the office.
and Tim's stuff's increasingly more technical. Take, for example, the new generator that we have. As we transition to those natural gas generators, there's a lot that can be controlled remotely.
That is
So
correct.
there's a value add by having that capability.
Yeah, there's a lot of technology that you can build into an electric utility system. For example, you could, like say there was a power outage or something and I was at home with the computer, I could actually see what's going on. You know, if we ever got to that point, there's a lot that will go into it, and you could actually open switches remotely and that type of thing to restore power a lot faster than waiting on people to get here. That's the type of technology that's out there.
And the computers that you see us purchase typically have, and I'm pretty sure, Mary, you can let me know if I'm incorrect in this, about a 3-year life cycle. So, well,
It's not a life cycle, it's the warranty.
okay.
Warranty.
And we typically replace those at the end of that 3-year period. So the investments that we're making in the technology are not just for today, it's for at least the next 3 fiscal years.
So a question on the laptops, they're pretty much in everybody's budget. Are you replacing like a third at a time or half?
So there's a replacement schedule that's been dictated by Cards with the 3-year life, I call it a life cycle, but a 3-year warranty, after which anytime a technical issue comes up, it becomes more cost effective to replace the unit at the end of 3 years.
But like, what is that percentage that we're replacing every year?
That I don't know off the top of my head.
I
Maybe
don't
Mary
know
would
off the
know.
top of my head either.
We could
It
send that
varies.
replacement schedule over though.
It varies from department to department, and I'm not gonna say that it was a set schedule based on a third every year or anything like that. I think it was based on when the equipment was purchased. At one point, we had to purchase a lot of new computers because the actual life of them was done. They were no longer supported. So that probably skewed whatever replacement schedule that we did have in place. And then it became a matter of every 3 years as warranties are up.
I'm just curious, because it's in every budget we look at.
You have some units in every department. So like the stuff that you're seeing, you might see again next fiscal year. It's because we have multiple employees with
Right.
different workstations. So the other interesting point is that it might be included in the FY22 budget. But let's just say, maybe like in the mayor's office, right? Our computer, we have one that's up. And it may be up in like September or October. And if it's not giving us any trouble, we might hold off another fiscal year.
Okay.
But just because it's in there does not mean it's going to be spent out.
And is the goal to replace all computers with laptops?
No, the goal is to look at the jobs and the roles that each employee does, and then say, okay, do they have a need, based off of the department head's request, do they have a need for being able to do some of that work remotely? Could there be some value add in having a laptop, like many of our employees are also staff liaisons for boards or commissions? So having to come up here also allows them to bring their workstation with them. One, they have all the tools that they need. 2, they can multitask if need be.
Certainly in
Also,
Tim's case, yeah.
right, and then when you think about like, a fine example, I think planning and zoning might be getting a laptop, and economic development. So say we have a new business wanting to come to Berlin, getting everybody together in one spot, you bring your workstation right up here to a conference room, you say these are the permits you need, these are some programs that we can offer, and you can help really streamline some of the processes that we're doing. So, it's a good question.
The next item I'd like to talk about is 5740, safety supplies and materials. What that is in the electric utility field, we're required by safety regulations to wear what's called FR clothing, fire retardant clothing, because we deal with electricity, and rubber gloves and sleeves and all that stuff, which is very expensive. But we're mandated to be wearing that type of uniform because of the dangers that we deal with electricity. And that goes for all the employees. All 10 of us are required to wear them in the power plant, if you're out working in the field and that type of thing. Page 4.
Tim, before we move through the next page, the real estate tax, the phase-in, 2 years, this amount is what you saw in the general fund as a transfer in. So this amount recorded on the admin as the expense will ultimately is a transfer to general fund.
And if you're looking on the general fund budget, that's in lieu of tax, I believe,
Correct.
as a revenue line item.
So this contingency at the bottom of page 3, that doubled from last year or fiscal year 21 to 22. What it,
When we are operating on the balanced budget, so basically to close the budget to be balanced, the excess of revenues is basically going to the contingency, so you have an excess of revenues projected as of right now in the moment of 26,000. So that would change before we adopt the budget, could go up and down dependent. Like example, when we recalculate the insurance numbers, it could be different.
okay.
Page 4. The Energy Audit Assistance Fund, basically that's, I'm certified to go out and do what's called home energy audits for people to help them with giving them some ideas and tips on how to make their homes more energy efficient. But right now with COVID going on, we've kind of put a hold on that, so we're not entering into people's homes. But I have a list which is growing and growing every week with people wanting me to come out and do a survey of their homes and that type of thing. So once COVID's over with, we'll start that program back up. Then we have what's called the Energy Assistant Fund, which I believe it's short.
This program, we have started this program very many years ago, and basically during the holidays we send the letter. We've discussed recently to have a little bit different approach and maybe mail the letters twice a year. That will allow people kind of get ready and prep, and if they feel the need that they can assist other residents in the town. So the fund is set up to match any contributions from the town residents or outside residents towards the assistance of electric bills. In the current fiscal 21, $5,550 was donated from all the people in the area, and the town matches dollar for dollar. So we have up to $10,000 set up out there to be available. Those funds go in directly to Shore Up, and the Shore Up administer through their program for people who qualify for assistance. We do not make ultimate decisions, so it goes to Shore Up.
And that goes strictly for Berlin residents?
Yes, it goes directly, so the monies come back. The fund gets transferred directly back to the town with the account number and the name, which account will be posted to.
And that 5,500 was donated by residents, you said?
Yes.
So people just earmark a check to you?
They would mail a check. We have a special account set up in the Bank of Ocean City. We don't see those checks per se. It goes directly. It's a tax deduction on the tax return as a contribution to non-for-profit. And they would write a check. The check gets deposited to the Energy Assistance Program. Then we write a check to match it and send it to Shore Up. And then we do the last part on their behalf.
For what it's worth, I think the 2 letters is a good idea.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. It requires a lot of manual work. This is all basically manual, but I think we can handle this. I think the one will be around holidays as usual. I think we can do one through maybe months that, like, weather restricted, where people are struggling to come up with their payments.
So would it be uncouth, for lack of a better term, to put a blanket announcement like that also on the public access channel? You know what I'm saying?
We do once in a while. I would also put a message on the bills as well when they go out. But I think once you receive the actual letter, it comes from the mayor of the town of Berlin. It draws more attention than just a regular
So
message.
does it go with a return envelope as well?
It goes with the
Yeah.
return envelope as well.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to mention on page 4 while I'm talking bond principal and bond interest. Those are the bonds for the electric department and the amounts that you see. We do budget the bond principal to show the payments, but at the end of the year, obviously, it closes against the statement principal. $348,000 is for the principal and $125,000 for the interest, the total services of fiscal '22 debt for the electric. Go ahead, Sam.
Okay. Also on page 4 is customer service reimbursement to the general fund, which is $6510. That's $162,735. Basically what that is the electric department pays 40% of customer service for handling billing and that type of stuff for the electric department. So it helps support salaries and things like that, and things that they use in there. So we pay a certain portion into that when it comes to the billing. Okay, on page 5, now going over to the power plant, which is 5610.
Just mention how many people are overall for personnel costs.
5610, 4002, that's one employee, that's Casey. So we only have one employee in the plant except when we're peak shaving. And if you go down through there,
No.
okay. We keep going down there. If you go down under contracted services, 5200, I'll just go through the list there. ADP, for example, is payroll. Cintas Services, that's a uniform company. They basically come in every week and they change out the industrial mats in the shop and rags and things like that. Okay, and then emissions stack testing. What that is there is when you have diesel engines, you have to stack test the emissions every 3 years. It's required by the NDE, Maryland Department of Environment. So you have to prove basically that you're not putting out too much emissions into the air with this type of engine. Then engine vibration test, basically that benchmarks each year what the engines are actually doing and how they're performing. You can, if there's an internal issue in the engine, the vibration test will pick that up because something has changed from the year prior. So it kind of gives you something to look at prior to some catastrophic thing happening. Then we're required by NDE also to do what's called the fuel line test. We have to do a pressure test every year on that too. Then as you go down through there, there's different rental equipment, building maintenance, that type of thing. These are all small items. If you go down to 5251, Eric, basically that is maintenance for equipment. We have many air compressors inside the plant, relay equipment, that type of stuff, parts and pieces for the engines. So we have to have money in there to maintain. And now we're getting into what's called capital outlay, which is 5255 on page 6. These are different projects that need to be done at the power plant. Like number 1, for example, Fairbanks Morse engine number 1, that's what's called the oxidation catalyst filter. Every 3 years you have to buy new filters so it'll pass the stack test basically. So that's what that's for. We originally had in there to replace number 2 and number 4 engines, which was going to be very costly, but we couldn't do it in this budget, so we took it out of there.
Just to add some context, we're talking about $4 million for those 2 engines. So around $4 million for those 2 engines.
That's correct.
Just so that everybody knows.
So Tim, to understand this, you have 4 generators, 2 are not working, right?
Actually, we had 5 when the plant first was built, and then we went from 5 down to 4, and now we're down to 3. So you have a 1961 Fairbanks engine, you have the new G3520 natural gas engine, and then you have a 1978 Chevrolet EMD engine. So those are the 3 engines that are operating at this time. And number 2 and number 4 engines are down.
So the newest one was an insurance replacement.
That-
Why wouldn't the others qualify?
What happened under, well, number 2 engine was actually the engine that was covered by insurance. But what we did is we put the new G3520 engine in the number 3 slot, which was a lot larger room, gave us a lot more room and air intake over the engine, so we put it in the number 3 position. Well, what happened during that time frame is the town's insurance company mandated that we do a lot of different maintenance and testing on the engines and that type of thing. Well, in the meantime, what happened on number 4 engine during the testing is the company that was there doing the work on the engine, they noticed that the engine was having an overheating issue. Number 4 engine, which is the Mitsubishi, that engine was built in the year 2000. Well, what they did is, what they found is on one of the cylinders, it has 16 cylinders. And one of the cylinders, the liner had actually cracked in it. It cracked straight down and all the way around. So at that point, they recommended that they do what's called a scope. And they scoped every cylinder. And when they did, they found scorch marks in the other liners in every cylinder. So they came back with an estimated cost to repair that, to do basically a whole topside rebuild, was going to be about $280,000. Well, that engine was built in the year 2000, so that's 21 years old, and to spend close to $300,000, it just didn't make financial sense to do that. So basically, number 4 engine is just sitting there. It's not a catastrophic failure, it just needs to have the topside rebuilt. But to spend $250,000 to do it, it just seemed too expensive. So that's where we stand right now. And plus, to put that kind of money into a diesel engine, it makes more sense to go to natural gas, to get away from the emissions and that type of stuff. So, okay, thank you. And then if you move down through the capital and the power plant, you'll see the power plant building roof and gutters. Basically, the building was built back in the 50s, and that is the original roof on that building. And it has many, many leaks in it. It's kind of like a rubber roof up there.
It's flat.
What's that mean?
It's a flat building, it's a flat roof.
Some portions it's flat, and then there's some that are not. And it's leaking in several places, and when they were installing the new engine, they had to bring in a roofing contractor to install a big intake fan. And while he was there, I got to talking to him about the roof, and I asked if he could give me a price on what it would take to basically put a new membrane on the roof. There's some facial board that's rotting, how much it would be to replace that, new gutters, that type of thing. And it's also the same company that replaced basically did the entire roof for AGH Hospital. So they're highly recommended. And he gave me a price on that, which was close to $100,000 to do that.
And it's important to note that the roof is leaking badly enough that it causes the fire alarm to go off sometimes.
It did.
And the fire department to have to respond.
The water actually ran down the wall into the pool handle, and the fire department had to respond out there. And you'll, every now and then when it's raining hard, you'll find buckets around the engines catching the water coming through the ceiling. And then if you go down through there, there's some other things like the power plant main switch gear. That's where the tie point is between the generation and the grid. There's some relays in there that are, they were installed in 1999, and basically their life expectancy is over, and they need to be replaced. And if those relays were to fail during peak shaving, that could cost the town up to anywhere from $150,000 to $400,000 in savings. So it makes sense to go ahead and replace those. Then also the substation reclosures, that's devices out in the power plant. They were installed in the late 1990s. They need to be basically tested and have some maintenance done on them, that type of thing. And then there's a relay cabinet, which we're going to put that on hold. That was close to $100,000 to replace that cabinet, and we'll put that on hold until next year. Okay. And then if you go down through there, I'm just going to talk about, I guess, the big expensive type things. Public Service Commission, which is the PSC. We have interaction with basically the state of Maryland, governing the electric utility, and they charge us certain fees to have interactions with them, like permit fees, services, that type of thing. That's what that covers. Vehicle fuel in the power plant, there's one vehicle, which is a Ford Ranger. I believe it's from the 1990s, I believe.
1992.
Is it 92?
Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty old. It's still running, but it's got some age on it. That's the only vehicle that's in the power plant. And then if you go down through there, there's some chemicals, for example, lube oil. Lube oil is for the engines. All the engines take oil to operate, basically. And then chemicals, for example, that's for the cooling towers. We have to basically put certain chemicals into the water to keep the cooling towers from rusting and that type of stuff internally. So that's what those are for. And then if you get down to 5730, those are small items for the engines, like fuel injectors, things like that. You're always buying parts and pieces to keep maintaining that. And then if you go on to page 7, safety supplies and materials, same thing I talked about earlier. All employees have to wear FR treated material because of fire and things like that. The RSP, purchase power fees, you see an increase there. And what that is basically the thing that we've been working on, trying to get the addendum to it, which seems like we're going to get it passed to save the town some money. So there's no way to get around that there. That's it. So.
And again, the purchase power here, $2,112,000 is the estimated cost provided by Booth and Associates.
Tim, I just, a question, the EMD, that still is operational?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's our largest engine at the power plant. It's a 2.5 megawatt engine. Okay, this is distribution, which is 5620. There's a total of 8 employees in that division. We have 2 chief linemen, 1 sub lineman, 1 second class apprentice, first class lineman, line superintendent, and meter technician. You'll see overtime in there, which is 4004. We're on page 8. That overtime is based on all kinds of different factors. We come in on power outages due to storms, accident-related, equipment failures, animals, substation maintenance outages, for example, power plant peak shaving program. That program, your hours normally run from 2 to 6 or 2 to 7 in the summertime. So our plant employee shifts his hours to actually coincide with that during the peak shaving. So he's on regular time. But the person that I have to put with him for safety, he normally works there after his scheduled time working in the field. So that's where you see that overtime at. Just to let you know, the Power Peak Shaving Program saves the town ratepayers around $450,000 annually. Okay. And then if you go on down through there,
Personnel cost? No, we're not moving, just questions.
Okay. All right. If you go down to 5200, which is contracted services, you have ADP payroll, boring services. What that is the state of Maryland Public Service Commission in today's world basically mandates that any new service goes underground, not overhead, and that's a good thing because that helps prevent power outages, that type of thing. Well, a lot of that has to go into what's called boring services. They have to actually directional bore a conduit under a roadway, driveway, and that type of thing. And I would say probably 96% of the time that we get that back and the developer paying for it. But there is occasionally where I may have to, in an emergency situation, if we have underground service, ask the boring company to come in and bore a pipe under a driveway or something, which the town would have to pay for that at that point. And then you have DOT physicals. All of our employees in distribution have a commercial driver's license, where you're required annually to take a DOT physical to keep your license. We're mandated to do that because we drive vehicles that are over 26,000 pounds. And then we have drug testing, and then fire protection services. We have to have testing in our power plants and in our shops and all that. And then as you go down through there, there's some other little items. NextGrid AMI meters. Downtown, we have a certain amount of meters that are remotely read, that type of thing. And then if you go over to page 9, 5250 is building maintenance. That's basically to maintain the shop at Schoolfield Street. And then if you go down to 5251, we have generator, preventive maintenance, meter testing, that type of thing. We're required annually by the PSC to test a certain amount of meters to make sure they're reading accurately, basically. And then if you go down into capital outlay equipment, accent lights, receptacles, services, what that's for is downtown. We got some pricing to put some new accent light for the trees, that type of thing. Receptacles, if we were to have an event, they could plug into them, that type of thing. Okay, and then electric pole replacements.
Tim, I'm sorry, so the receptacle, what does that mean exactly? Like receptacles?
Electrical
from the-
receptacle.
Well, yeah, but I mean, are they gonna be by the trees? Is it-
Yes, by the trees. What that'll be for is you can basically plug the tree into it for lighting purposes, or if you were to have an event, and say, for example, you had a vendor that wanted to be in the middle of the block, for example, between, let's say, Pitt Street and back down to Baker Street. They could just plug into that outlet if they needed power, that type of thing.
It's also for the tree lights, right?
That's
The actual
Yes.
lights?
It's the infrastructure to get to that plus the lighting
That's
for
correct.
the uplighting.
So it's a combination of the two.
Combination of both.
Yep.
Yeah.
And currently, we don't have that ability, like Tim's saying, like say somebody wants to be mid-block or something like that for town events, we don't have that capability of just being able to access an electrical service. So
Yeah.
it makes it nice and you don't have that extension of a line running.
And what they do right now, if somebody wanted to be in the middle of the block, they run an extension cord halfway down the block, which people could trip over, that type of thing. So it makes more sense when we go to do this, is have receptacles in so many locations and they just plug into them.
So regarding the lights, you mentioned uplighting. Is that a conversation we'll have in the future?
Yeah, this-
Whether it be tree lights or uplighting?
Well, it's going to require council action to purchase whatever we want to do or a different option. So it is an ultimate decision that the council would have to act on, but for budgetary purposes, we put $10,000 there as a quote. Yeah. So a lot of this stuff, it might be in the budget, but it still does require some action.
Do we currently, well, I guess we don't, if they don't have the ability, do we charge for electric for a vendor? Event?
No, what we've done actually is a lot of the locations before, up till maybe a year or two ago, they used to be non-metered. In other words, the usage wasn't metered. So we basically, you would just plug in and use whatever you needed to for the events. Now, most of the locations are metered, so we know exactly how much electricity is being used. And it's very minimal for the events. But it allows us to keep an active account on what's going on, and how much usage, et cetera.
That's a good point, Jack. Maybe there should be a fee.
Well, I'm just wondering, we might be paying $10,000 for receptacles.
It's not all receptacles.
I mean,
I would say
and
what,
lights.
lighting's about half, I would say.
Probably three-quarters.
Yeah, I
of
would
it.
say almost $8,000
Yeah.
that's lighting.
Yeah,
And the other quarter of it is infrastructure.
that's
So-
correct. Yeah, because
I-
put lights
I think
in the
it's something
trees,
worth-
we got to get electricity to them.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's maybe something worth at least looking into.
Yep.
Um,
Okay.
Thank you.
The next big item there is Savage Substation Transformer Nitrogen Blanket. What that is, that's $18,000. Basically, you got to keep moisture out of the transformers because moisture and electricity do not mix. And it hasn't been done in the 11 years that I have been here, and it's something that we definitely need to do. Then if you go down through there, the other things are transclosure, three-phase, replacement, that type of thing. And then commercial services, for example, we may have to buy 1 or 2 or 3 three-phase transformers per year. We're normally reimbursed that amount of money from the developer. They pay for that when it comes to those type of things. Okay, and then underground services, we average about 10 a year, depending, in Berlin, you have 1 or 2 homes put in, but sometimes you have a developer that comes in and they do 10 or so. So we do our best guess to figure out how many we're going to do that year. If you go down to number 5257, budget item, bucket truck safety testing, we're required annually to do what's called dielectric testing on the vehicles. They have to pass a certain test. If you keep going, you have vehicle repairs, utilities, telephone, travel, cell phone, non-capital equipment. Basically what that is there is that is every little item that goes in the field on the poles, transformers, that type of thing, which are all parts and pieces.
And there's a,
Meters.
Meters. If you go to page 10, you'll see 200 class, those are residential meters. We have a lot of what's called dial type meters in the field. They're basically older type, and we're going to solid state type, which I believe the mayor, you have a solid state on your home, I believe.
is that a digital thing?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Now, those are mandated by the Public Service Commission to begin phasing out
That
in a
is
certain
correct.
period. So
Yes, so we're basically mandated by the Public Service Commission to start phasing what's called dial type meters out, and we're going to what's called solid state, which is all electronic.
And that's digital, okay.
That
So what is
digital.
is it just as they need replaced, we replace them? Is it by age?
No, what's going on is every year we have to do what's called a meter population. Every utility company, electric utility in the state of Maryland has to basically test a certain amount of meters, and then that information is sent to whoever is hosting it. And it may be Delmarva Power one year, it might be Easton, it could be Thurmont, Williamsport. And basically what they do is they look at the accuracy overall of all the different manufacturers of meters. If they see a certain amount of basically not being accurate, for example, they can come back and mandate, okay, you need to replace this amount of meters. And basically that's what's going on here. Okay, that's how they get to that point. So if you go down through there, transformers, those are basically single-phase transformers, residential, which are normally paid back to us by the developer. Supplies and operations, just materials, safety supplies. At $7,000, that's for all the employees. They all have to wear rubber gloves, safety gear, that type of thing. Basically, that's it.
Tim, can I just go back, just so I understand this? You said that we have, well, when it was first originated, it was 5 generators. Now we have 4 and 3 are operational.
Well, what happened is when the plant was, let's back up many, many years ago, okay? In 1999 and 2000, the plant was renovated. They all had Fairbanks Morse engines in there. There was 5 of them. And when they renovated the plant in 1999 and 2000, they kept one of the Fairbanks, which is the 1961. Then they replaced all the other engines. Number 2 engine, which was a Mitsubishi, 3 and 4, were 1999-2000 vintage engines. They were installed. Then they also installed a 1978 Chevrolet EMD engine. That's the biggest engine we have. That's 2.5 megawatts. And then what happened, I think in 2003 or 4, number 3 engine had a catastrophic failure, which was the Mitsubishi. I wasn't here back then. That engine was never replaced, so it kind of just sat there, dormant, non-functional. And then in July of 2019, am I right, Jeff? July of 2019, number 2 engine had a failure. Connector rod broke, and the connector rod went through the side of the block of the engine, so it basically destroyed the block. The insurance company covered probably 96% of the cost to replace that engine, and the town put a certain amount of money towards it. Well, at that point, that's when I got with Maryland Department of Environment, and we talked it over and decided to go away from diesel engines and go to natural gas, which is a lot cleaner, emissions are a lot less, a lot less regulations to deal with. For example, the natural gas engine, you do not have to stack test it every 3 years. That is a federally rated emission engine, so it basically doesn't have to be tested emissions-wise. And then, while that was being replaced, the insurance company mandated that we do all this testing and maintenance work on all the other engines, which I think that was close to $80-something thousand that we spent. And then during that testing is when we found the issue with the other Mitsubishi engine, which was number 4. So number 3 failed in 2003, number 2 engine failed in 2019, and then number 4 Mitsubishi engine. So they're all 3 the same manufacturer. That also had a major issue, which was going to cost around $300,000 to have it repaired. And we just felt it wasn't financially feasible to put that amount of money into an engine that old. So right now, you only have 3 engines running, number 1, number 3, and number 5.
Ultimately, it would take probably about 3 natural gas engines to cover our needs for peak shaving.
That's during basic weather, correct. Now, in the winter months, if you're pushing 12, 15 megawatts, it's not going to carry that. The plant's not going to do it. But on a normal day like today, for example, right now we got 5.7 megawatts. If you had another 2 to 3 megawatts, we could carry the entire town on a day like this. But if we had 2 more natural gas engines, that would give us 6, 7, almost 10 megawatts of generation.
And
that means 3/4 of the time throughout the year we could carry the entire town if we were to lose the transmission feed from Delmarva Power.
And to speak on that just a little bit, if we had 5 generators up and running, and they were all natural gas generators, sometimes what you see in like manufacturing is if you have a plant and you're operating at, let's just say for the sake of this, 66% of the capacity, that additional capacity you can lease out to somebody else. So we've talked about the possibility of what it would take to maybe lease some of our space, i.e. having a generator there. We have our staff time and the resources, and we would lease that to some other electric utility to help them with peak shaving or things of that nature. So there might be some revenue offset or some potential for gain financially for the town of Berlin by pursuing something like that. So we'll take a look at it in FY '22. It's not going to change anything right now.
Yeah, basically, the thumb rule is for every megawatt of generation, it can save the town ratepayers up to $100,000 a year. So you figure if you had a plant that had 8, 10 megawatts of generation, you could be looking at a good amount of savings for the town. And also, it's a backup. The town only has one transmission feed into the town. So if that transmission line goes down from Delmarva Power, the town is totally out of power. We only have one feed that comes into town.
Thank you for that. And then my other question, and this is just real quick, I wanted to I'm trying to find it. I think it was training that went from 13,000 to 1. And that's just due to it all being online, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
What page are you on?
I'm trying to find it real quick. I remember it was 13,000 to 1.
What's the line item?
Trying to find it.
The distribution. I think it's the distribution. 5620.
What's the name of
Well, I mean, the answer is because it's all online. I mean, is that?
Yeah, a lot of the training right now is online, but when it comes to lineman training, they have to physically go to the school and do certain tasks.
There, it's 5620 under, I wasn't training, excuse me, dues, ATSSA.
Oh, yeah, that's a matter.
So was that just because it's all mostly online?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you, sorry. I had to find it. That's all the questions I have.
I'm trying to find what you were looking at.
Oh, sorry, it's page, page 3, 5620. Dues and other.
Page 3, 5620. Okay, that's what we
You see,
see.
it's 13,000 to 1.
Well,
There's, okay, correction. The previous 13,000 was Public Service Commission dues and publications that we have relocated that amount to, let me find where I went. The decrease is not because it's online, it's just because the expense have been moved. So where is the Public Service Commission? I'm losing it right now.
That should be an admin.
Yes, it should be an admin.
Oh.
There's Public Service Commission services that we pay annually, it's annual fee. So basically that was, we moved from that account to the different line item. So
It is
there's no reason
in
decrease.
page 6, 5620. And we'll just change that description. I know it drops off at budget adoption, but just change that addition.
Did you move it?
Did you say page 6, 5620?
Yeah.
Okay. I see it, yeah.
So 12,000, yes, that 12,000 used to be an line item that you're referring to that got decreased
Okay.
by 12,000.
Could you just move it?
Thank you.
Yeah, it was, it's 5610 department is proper placement.
And then so are we going to drop the Public Service Commission, the PSC, in the description beside ATSSA dues, or are we moving it back there?
That was on.
Page 3, that's Jack's initial question.
details.
Right.
Yeah, it needs to be dropped, yeah,
Okay.
I'll delete that description right now.
Thank you.
All right, now, for the sake of time, Jamie, I don't know if you can do a fund in 10 minutes. but,
We can try.
yeah, well, you
I'm
have.
gonna give her a college try.
Well, your hard stop is going to be at 6:55.
That's fine.
All right. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
And we're going to pick up for everybody following along at home on page 10 with the water fund revenue.
And I'll keep it kind of short and sweet, and, but I was, come up with a little bit of experience. Our oldest, or longest standing employee's been with the town 37 years, our youngest is 2 years, for an average of between 16 employees we had with the town, roughly 211 years, for an average of 14 years of experience in our department. I'd say 75% of all of our employees, well, all of them have a temporary license, but probably 75% of our employees are licensed and by MDE, which is a significant amount. So, and in our department, I take care of water, wastewater, and stormwater. The wastewater operates 13 lift stations. We have 3 wells, roughly 400,000 gallons per day, 2 water towers, 2 spray sites, for a total of 1,500 acres between the 2 spray sites. 2 lagoons, roughly 70 million gallons, 1 5A wastewater treatment plant, 32 monitoring wells that have to be sampled quarterly. You know, we do generate some income due to septic being hauled in from outside septic haulers. We also have, well, we really don't have any miles of sewer we have, because at one spray site there's 238 acres we spray on, the other one's 54 acres. So we range anywhere between a 14-inch water main or 14-inch main to a 2-inch main. I do know there's 9 miles from the town to spray site A. There's 7 miles from spray site A to spray site B. That's not including all the fields inside the spray site. But roughly there's 5,300 spray sites at spray site A, for a total of between 60 and 70 fields we spray on. There's 618 spray heads at site B, which are 2 zones, but there's one zone has 8 fields, the other one has 6 fields. You know, Tim was talking about training with his guys. You know, we do have training also. Usually to get your license, you have to be under, or somebody has to oversee you for 3 years. You have to work for a municipality. We really don't sign off, but you have to be a temporary licensed operator for 3 years before you can take the board test. But we do have to carry continuing education credits. So as myself, I have to carry 32 credits a year plus, or 32 credits every 3 years, plus a 7-hour superintendent course. So we have, most of our guys have that. We've been very fortunate. I belong to Maryland Rural Water also, as I'm a board member. They do a lot of classes online, which are free, but there's some classes we can't take because they don't offer for superintendents and some of the other technical classes. So we do have to go to pay for some of our classes where we don't have to. Just so you know that Berlin is the largest spray site in the state of Maryland. We are one of the only ones that are 100%. We are the largest 100% spray irrigation facility in the state of Maryland. There's a lot of little ones, but the town of Berlin is the largest. There's other ones that are larger, but they spray, 6 months out of the year, then discharge 6 months out of the year into a creek. We don't. All of ours gets pumped to spray site A. So we try to, make sure our levels are down low, and, I'm going to speak on behalf of the town, but I know COVID's got everything screwed up, and we have 3 new faces. Well, Zach, you've been here, so I'm not, but we have 3 new faces. I would love you all to come and see what we do. You might get grossed out, you might not, but I want you all to see what we go through every day.
Can I bring my hard hat when
You can do whatever you want. Tim talks about his guys with electrical and all that. Well, ours is just as bad because, some of the utilities under the ground, you don't know what's there. So ours is dangerous too. So, every department that the town has, there's some aspect of being dangerous because stuff's not located properly, stuff's put in the ground that's not been, nobody knows. I'm going to use a prime example. We replaced some valves over on Branch Street this year. The gas company has shoved it was a steel line 2-inch, they shoved an 1.5-inch line through the inside of it, and nobody knew. So we cut it, and it was a live gas line. So, it's no big deal. The gas company was right there, so they shut it off within minutes, but,
It's no big deal.
No, it's nothing. We stood there and did it. It's our job. That's, I will tell you that 90% of every one of our guys, mud, water, whatever it takes, they get the job done. I'm sure you're all aware that we had to replace the sewer line on South Main this past weekend. I will say it went like a well-oiled chain. Everybody laughs at me because I use that phrase, but we were in and out of here in just right around 6 hours. A lot of people don't understand a lot of the state roads in town, William Street, Bay Street, Broad Street, and Main Street is all concrete road bed. I made a decision last week to go around a fairly large saw to cut the road. It's a 36-inch saw blade. That saved all the time in the world. I mean, it made it 10 times easier. If not, we'd had to use jackhammers, and so you know how tiresome that would have
So
been.
you had to rent that.
Yes, it was very inexpensive for what we went through and to get the job done quicker. So, like I said, I'm going to speak for the town. We would love you to come and see our departments, what we do, how we operate, what we maintain. Every department's different. I mean, we help Tim helps us, he helps us pull our lift station pumps. So it's, we have a very good relation. And I feel that every one of us get along well in town. So I'd just like you all to come and visit us and see what we've got, because you have something that's very unique, very different, and pretty advanced. So. All right. Yeah. You got 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
I suggest we go to stormwater since it's the smallest fund.
Jason's not in charge of it.
Yeah. So normally we would go in line, going from water to sewer to stormwater. Since we have only 5 minutes, we can cover the stormwater fund, and then we have 2 funds left after all.
What page now?
Stormwater starts on
27.
27. Stormwater fund is our newest fund. It's our, we jokingly call it baby fund. It is responsible for stormwater fees that collected from the residents of the town of Berlin. There are residential portion and a commercial portion piece of it. We have 2 employees in stormwater, and currently for this projected budget fiscal 22, we don't have any capital expenditures budgeted. We will be looking into setting up some sort of a capital advancement reserve in the future so we can apply for more grants and complete the stormwater projects in the nearest future. The total budget for stormwater for fiscal 22 is $183,000 estimated to be. Main part is the residential services of stormwater, $75,600, and commercial, I lost my, non-resident, commercial, $99,600. We have a stormwater review fees of $7,000. Those amounts are collected from the projects and residents. When someone is coming with a new construction, they're required to pay the fee, but it's a wash because we utilize EA Engineering as a professional services. They would bill us in the same amount, so it's probably, it's most of the time is in net zero to the budget. Jamie, want to talk about some specifics or not?
No, I mean, those guys, they're usually out pulling the catch basins, cleaning jet and the storm drain lines, helping repair storm drain lines, maintaining the properties that are towns. We had more than enough for them to maintain, so they keep a good job of that, and they try to keep up on it.
We utilize an engineering services of EA Engineers. As I mentioned on page 29, you will see that it's budgeted at $22,000 for the year. It's well worth it. All of the reviews, all of the proposals, and all the projects reviewed by their professional staff. So on page 30, that $7,000 in revenues that I mentioned, you have an offset of the stormwater review expense. That's what I was talking about. There's some supplies in operation, some safety supplies, and this fund, they have a little bit of a contingency as we close in this year of $6,000, but it's again up for change dependent.
I think, go ahead.
Well, I think that my questions are going to have to wait until we reconvene with the stormwater fund. So if we're pressed for time, I'll wait. yield that time for the,
We have 5 minutes. I would like to stop at 6:55 just to give us a chance to regroup before the regular session. But we do have 5 minutes if there are any questions related to the stormwater fund that we can get out and answered within 5 minutes.
well, we'll try.
Go ahead.
So the stormwater fund, you had mentioned it's newer, so a little bit of history that I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong. Berlin was one of the first to initiate this sort of fund, and it has 2 FTEs in it currently,
Yes, sir.
and it has helped garner us, as a town, over $4 million in grants. Is that correct?
Yes.
So ultimately, the fees that we, that are assessed to commercial and residents really are there to help a fund, to help us put up money to get grants, essentially.
That's one of the function, but as many function also to operate the fund in general and maintain the stormwater drains and ditches and provide
the
supplies
two-
and
the two
supplies and materials.
Who do a great job. I'm not knocking them. I just want to get my head around this fund that everybody is paying into that is rather small and new. And it seems to me that it's really helping us get grants at the moment. Okay, so I did get that in 5 minutes. Okay?
Good job.
Yeah.
I think that it's also important to know while we're talking about that, we have a couple minutes, just to understand that when you look at like the audited financial statements and you see non-spendable, there is an amount that is owed to the general fund from the stormwater fund. I believe it's what, like 320 something thousand
Yes.
dollars. So you do see that a contribution of an attempt to try and pay down some of that debt in the budget. So as long as the fund were to close
It's a tap.
as anticipated, then we would see that transfer occur.
I wouldn't call it a bad debt, it was a contribution from general fund or borrowing into fund borrowing. Initially, when the fund was set up, we have transferred to initiate the fund in general. But in the past couple of years, the fund is not closing in the positive or net to zero, so the fund is borrowing from general fund to operate due to the increased cost of the projects and et cetera. On agenda for the nearest future, it is to re-look at the structure of the fees and the amounts, residential and commercial fees for the stormwater. The plan is to have a capital reserve so we can go and apply for the grants again. Right now, it's not visible because there is no funding available to match from the fund.
All right.
Okay.
So on that note, let's end our work session or postpone the other 2 funds until we conclude our regular mayor and council meeting, and then we'll reconvene starting with Jamie and Natalie on the water fund. All right.